Director of listed companies and an independent mineral, oil, and gas policy advisor. Welcome. Engineer Suleiman bin Khalid Al-Mazrour, CEO of the National Industrial Development and Logistics Program, NIDLIP. Wendy Tyrell, Executive Director of the Development Partner Institute.
Thank you, Dina.
Dr. Ross Bapu, Partner and Head of Private Equity Mature Funds. Mr. Jeff Geppel, Founder and Managing Director of the Mining Shared Value Initiative at Engineers Without Borders, Canada. And Michael Leffenfield, President and CEO of Cianco. Welcome, everybody. The ESG, environmental, social, and governance and sustainability has not only become a trend, but a global expectation, and a fundamental in all sectors, including the mining sector. And we've all seen how the pandemic accelerated the global realization and urgency for ensuring the implementation of these crucial aspects. Being CEO of Intech Environmental Technology consultancy firm, we have been working on sustainability strategies and environmental monitoring and plans for the past 20 years for various sectors. And we experience hand-on now the epic positive leap and ambitious targets to remediate and sustain the environment, as well as business models adjustments to comply with the ESGs, SDGs, and circular economy in the kingdom. Thus, I'm going to start with Sheila, and I'd like to hear from you, from your expertise, working with various international entities, and after moderating the ministerial roundtable yesterday and the session this morning, how do you see the global future of mining embracing ESG and sustainability principles?
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate you inviting me to be in the panel and joining my other colleagues, but more than that, I appreciate the time that the audience has taken to be with us. I think a good place to start to answer the question is to recall that last year in New York, the CEO of the world's biggest fund running into trillions said his fund would not fund any company in the world unless they have an ESG strategy. Mm-hmm. That was a defining moment. ESG moved from being a nice to have, something that would enhance the stature of mining company brands, to becoming a business value proposition. It's a business value proposition for host countries. And as we think about what His Excellency Banda is thinking in terms of the region, it suggests that any company seeking to do business in the land of opportunity must fundamentally address the ESG component. It's no longer something that they have an option to. And this, I expect, will be the trend. The second thing, of course, is that equally, the host governments themselves, especially in the space of governance, but also the social component, they have a moral, a legal, and an economic contract with their citizens to use the minerals to better the lot of their people. And so on the one hand, you have the investors complying with best practice, but also you have the host government themselves complying with the expectations of the citizens to benefit. In the absence, I think, of this marriage between investors and host governments and delivering to the expectations of the communities, and by communities I don't mean those in the vicinity, I mean communities en masse. I mean those in the vicinity, I mean the elite with their expectations, and civil society and academia. Unless everybody sees that they have a skin in the game and that they are benefiting, then I think everything will come to pass. This, when I think of ESGs, investing, this, when I think of sustainability, is the picture that emerges.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Sheila, for that. You know, there's a concept of win-win situation, right? Honestly, I've been for the past maybe 5 years saying win-win-win-win situation. It's no longer just a win-win. You know, everybody needs to be a winner in this, and I totally agree with that. Thank you. Engineer Suleiman, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has witnessed major transformation with the launch of Vision 2030 and achieving economic diversification, focusing on the mining sector through the largest program to achieve the vision, which is the National Industrial Development and Logistics Program, NIDLIP, which aims to transform the kingdom to be a leading industrial power and global logistic hub for the mining, and to be the pillar of the national industry. Please shed light on the main mandates of NIDLIP for the mining sector.
Thank you, Dr. Dina. I think since we speak about the ESG, let me put that in perspective when it comes to Saudi Arabia in general. I think the efforts that Saudi Arabia exert to make sure that we protect the planet, we play a major role in the international community is a great example. Let me start by the transformation of the energy sector. By 2030, Saudi Arabia announced that 50% from its energy will come from renewable energy. That's one great action that we are moving toward. Secondly, the carbon emissions. Net zero by 2060. Circular carbon economy initiatives. 39 billion riyal of fund to clean fuel solutions. That's a second item. And as might of you just drove through the airport, you might have noticed the Riyadh Green Project, which is part of Saudi Green Initiatives and Middle East Green Initiatives, which led by His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman to plant more than 10 billion trees in Saudi Arabia and 40 billion trees in the region by 2030. These just as examples of how Saudi Arabia is going forward to protect the planet. When it comes to mining, the strategy in mining was from the beginning thinking of the environment and ESG. And that's why the regulations and the legal framework came with mandates on health, safety, environment, and also local contribution to the local communities within the area, create jobs, business opportunity for small entrepreneurs within that area. These are just the regulations mandate. And more than that, it's our partners in ground, the national company in Saudi, Champion Ma'adin, and they're making an example of that all over the location within Saudi Arabia.
I'm sorry, I'm trying not to be biased, but I cannot not be proud as a Saudi, you know, to witness and to actually, you know, see the real deal happening. And these are facts that I think maybe from today's sessions that you've already attended and what we're hearing now and what we'll continue to hear until tomorrow is honestly something that is a global direction that I think we look forward to becoming the leaders in this domain. On that note, I'll turn to you, Wendy. The Development Institute, their objective is to help transform mining sector to contribute to ESG. From your experience, what is the largest gap between the public and private sector, and how could you bridge that?
Thanks very much for the question, Dina, and also for the opportunity to share in this panel. So I think the largest gap exists between the government and the private sector as being not understanding deeply what each other wants. And I would extend that to also being a gap with communities and civil society. And if we can bridge that gap so that we do deepen understanding of what's important for government, what's truly important for the private sector, what's important for other stakeholders in mining, then we have enormous potential to accelerate the transformation. I loved this morning that His Excellency Al Khareev said, sometimes things look good on paper.
Mm-hmm.
And the depth of understanding that we sometimes see, that we often see, between government and private sector looks good on paper.
True.
And yet when we much more deeply understand where people are coming from and what's important for them, then we can accelerate towards the change that we want to see. And perhaps if I could give an example of one of the initiatives that we're working on.
Mm-hmm. Please do.
So our flagship program at the Development Partner Institute is called RESCO, and that's a short word for our Responsible Sourcing Coalition. And it brings together, right across the value chain of mining, it brings together investors, government, it brings together the private sector, miners, refiners, traders, it brings together communities and civil society, and then it brings the consumers who buy the products of mining. And it's been astounding to hear with curiosity how much deeper the understanding of what each other wants to see. We're working on a particular advancement of RESCO this year, which will be about, it's called The Future is X. So by 2040, if we look back, what do we want to see? What will responsible sourcing look like? And so we're very excited about that initiative, and I think that's really crucial to bridging the gap between government and the private sector and others.
Absolutely. So clarity and transparency basically is what is expected and what is actually needed for both sectors, right? And this is what I understand, to create a crucial, healthy PPP. Even partnership between partnerships between private sector themselves, and then between the private sector and the government sector.
And empathy and compassion, I would add to that as well.
Wonderful. Okay, well, that being said, it's clear that both public and private sector have an equal role play in attracting investments.
Indeed.
So I turn to Dr. Ross. Knowing that the Arabian Shield is an extremely rich opportunity for further exploration and extraction, as a private equity fund that has invested in about 50 countries, what are the main elements that encourage you to invest in the mining sector, and what are the showstoppers or a no-go?
Well, so thank you. And first of all, thank you for inviting me to be a participant in this. It's such an important topic, and this is such an important part of the world in terms of growth, in terms of the need for minerals to become more carbon neutral. You know, you have to have a lot of these minerals that we're exploring for. So it's great to be a part of this. It's great to be invited here. First of all, I would say you're right. We've invested in over 50 countries around the world, roughly 200 different projects across a wide range of commodities. And what we're looking for investments in commodities that we like. That's the first thing. Secondly, we're looking for places that want us to be, places that will welcome us to be a part of their economy and their country.
Oh, who doesn't welcome money?
Sorry?
Who doesn't welcome money? You're welcomed anywhere. Investments are welcomed anywhere. I mean,
no, I can tell you we've been a lot of places where you don't feel very welcome. And I have to say, I've never felt more welcome than I have here at this conference today. So thank you to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It's really fantastic.
To have you here.
Yeah, thank you. So we want to be where we're welcome, and then we want to be in places that that we can invest and know that the goalposts are going to be the same, that they're not changing over short periods of time. So we want to be able to explain to our investors why we're coming into a new country and what we're looking for, recognizing that quite often the goalposts do change. So the tax regime, royalties might change. Mm-hmm. But it's important that we have a seat at that table and that we're involved in that process.
Right.
What are some of the showstoppers? I mean, I think the key for us is really governments that are transitioning, changes, places where you don't feel that your investment is sound. The security of title, having security of title to mine. Maybe you don't own the land, but you own the rights to mine, and that security of title is absolutely crucial. Mm-hmm. Quite often, we're looking for laws that are very sound and that have some history of the extractive industry. A lot of countries we've gone to don't have sound laws around extracting minerals or oil and gas, and so we want to make sure that those laws have been tested and they're sound. Mm-hmm. And then finally, we're looking for places that are safe, and that I'll give you an example. Early on, we were looking at some fabulous opportunities in Colombia, and at the time, there was a lot of unrest in Colombia, and we were uncomfortable sending people there. Today, Colombia is a fabulous place, and we're very happy to send people there. But personal safety is always critical. To Wendy's point about about making sure it's a win-win-win, and that what looks good on paper often doesn't always work out. When I was with Newmont many years ago, we had a situation where the contract we were working under required that a percentage of the profit sharing went to the local employees that worked for Newmont for us, which sounded great on paper. But what you found is the mine was very successful, and we ended up paying these massive bonuses to only a very select few people. And the contractors, the truck drivers, for example, were contracted. They weren't employees. The laboratory workers were not employees, and so they didn't participate. And so while it looked good on paper, it wound up being a disaster. And so to your point, Dina, creating these win-win-win situations, we want win-win situations with our investors, with the governments, but really with the local community, and being welcome. It's not just being welcomed by the federal government, it's being welcomed by the local community that's going to be having this mine in their backyard, so to speak.
Okay, wonderful. So the G part, the governance, I think it was quite clearly covered so far, and by the ministers and even by Engineer Suleiman, that at least here in the kingdom, we have very strong governance now. The rules and regulations are very clear, and also the government has open arms to discussions for any adjustments, because there is the realization, as the whole country is in transformation, which means that there is the realization that updating and continuously, innovating and tweaking to the better for the benefit of all is become the new norm. So from that perspective, I think, on behalf of Engineer Suleiman and everybody, I think, that's something that is quite reassuring. But from the other perspective, as funding for the private sector, and the actual mine owners and etc., that as you've mentioned previously to me, that your funding, you have your exit strategy within 5 to 7 years, and you would like to make sure that when you are leaving a sound, sustainable mine for it to go on, right?
Absolutely.
So just to tackle on the E and the S from the ESGs, it is very important for your decision making in investment that they are not only, as you said, on paper, but they are actually fully implemented in the plan, in the process, and even after closing.
Yeah, that's right. Even though we're an investor for 5 to 7 years, when we go into the investment, we're looking even beyond the life of the mine and saying, right, what is going to be there after this mine is gone? And how can we build the mine up front so that some of the land, some of the buildings, those can be used long after we're gone from mining, and that there's an ongoing industry or business on the back of that. So massively important, Dina.
Amazing. Thank you, Jeff, for that. Thank you, Russ. I'll ask Jeff, innovation. Now, with all of these discussions, innovation and new technologies is the future. In terms of procurement and the entire supply chain, why is it important for private sector to be transparent about practical information such as what are they buying, where are they buying it from?
Well, thanks so much for having me. We run an initiative pushing and helping the mining sector to buy more locally. And when we're talking about increasing societal expectations of what mining can contribute, I think one thing we have learned is that, investment on its own doesn't generally lead to widespread transformation. Jobs on their own, taxation on their own. We've seen many countries who have had a mining boom, and at the end of that boom, there was very little to show for it in terms of new industrial capacity and new skills that could be used for other sectors and diversification. So in that regard, I think that the model that is being pursued here in Saudi Arabia is very laudable. I mean, it is not just a matter of let's have mining take place and we'll let the cards fall where they may. We actually have investment in mining industrial cities, actual huge investment in infrastructure around the supplier base that would then supply the mine. So nothing is left to chance. It is it's a steering. It's not a hard regulation of you must buy locally and a percentage, but it says we want you to buy locally and here's some support to do so. That's
Right.
really key. I think along with that, where the transparency comes in is if we want to incorporate the entire society and the entire economy in the mining journey, they need the information. They need to understand how mining works, what mining buys in terms of goods and services, how much they buy, right? If you're a business in a host country and you don't understand what the supplying opportunities are, you can't invest. If you want to get investment for your business to supply the mine, you need to know kind of the relative scale for what that product that you want to offer is, or else you'll never get investment, because why would somebody invest if there's no market data? So I think what we've been pushing for, and I think there's some models already in place, particularly with the presence of a state-owned mining company, is information sharing to guide performance on the issue of procurement. But it's the same for every other issue, right? I mean, hiring is the same way. We need to empower local vocational schools to understand what skills they need to supply the mining industry. And maybe what I'll just end with, because you mentioned innovation and the mine in the future, what I would say is it's very important that countries that are getting into the mining industry in a big way understand that the new mines are going to have far less employees. They're going to be much more automated. Large-scale mines will be much more automated, and that's great for safety. That's great for better for the environment in terms of resource use, but it means less jobs. And if there isn't a comprehensive strategy to foresee what those job losses will be, and to then sort of compensate through more procurement and more other more other benefits that will come in the place of those jobs, there's going to be a real social license challenge. Mines will not necessarily be invited if they're not going to create that many jobs. So I would caution that.
Yeah, but Jeff, don't you think when we're transforming into digitalization, maybe it's not losing jobs or minimizing job opportunities, it's just shifting the kind of jobs. So there are certain kind of jobs that are being no longer required, but then there are opportunities for new jobs. So I think maybe what this is implying to or takes us to is the direction of new education and requirements of the new direction of the mining. And maybe, they'd be more into IoT and AI in the mining, sector, and the different technologies and systems that could be used. For instance, the system that your company has come up with. So, yes, there would be, a percentage of losing certain kind of jobs, but then it's opening a whole new era of different kind of jobs. Thank you very much for that, Jeff. And Michael, as a chemical manufacturer and provider to gold and silver mines globally, you fit in with the procurement and supply chains that Jeff has just mentioned. So how do you incorporate the ESGs and specifically safety of the community, since you're a chemical manufacturer and transporting to globally in different countries?
Well, it's a great question, and thank you for having me here with you. Obviously, as a transporter of a very hazardous chemical, we are the world's largest manufacturer of a chemical known as sodium cyanide, used to get basically gold and silver out of rock. From the beginning of our business 40 years ago, ESG was in our DNA before it was a known term. We built our plants with zero emissions, zero discharge. We make sure that everything is contained, within the pipe, within the shipping containment and infrastructure. We work with our communities where our product has to be delivered through to make sure they're well educated. We have an entire service arm that works with the mines from their inception for how they will handle the chemical, how they will safely handle the chemical, how they will use it, and how they will ultimately dispose and detoxify it to make sure the land, as was stated earlier, is returned back to usable, safe land going forward. You can't have tailing ponds filled with cyanide. If a bird lands on that pond, you're not going to have a very good day. So we've employed, as you said, the shift in the education. We've employed AI, machine learning, to make sure that leaching systems are, enabled in a way that makes sure all the cyanide is consumed from start to finish, whether it's heap or milled. We share our business intelligence and our data analytics with the mines to make sure that every gram of the product is tracked, through blockchain as well, all the way through to make sure that no cyanide goes, into a region where it's not supposed to be, or where it's taken into a somewhat of a nefarious, means. So our business has always been ESG related. Obviously, related to governance, related to reporting. We are 100%, open with our safety and our production. We were the original signatory to what's known as the International Cyanide Management Code, making sure that cyanide is used in the best ways at all the mines, or they can't use cyanide at all. So we have really enabled that type of value chain, being the premier cyanide, manufacturer and supplier to the world's mines.
Thank you, Michael. It's comforting to know that there are companies like yours that take full responsibility, basically, of the industry that they and the service and the what they provide, and it's crucial. What I realized from the different perspectives that everybody has mentioned, transparency seemed to be the common word that, on every level, and the clarity. And it's interesting to see that, each one from a totally different perspective, this was the key. And I think that it's a very important direction, because that is what will lead to, global also sharing of best practices. It on a local level between the government and the private sector. It also, creates the synergy and the comfort and the, the ease. Obviously, this helps in bridging the gaps, because, as you said, understanding and knowing and clarifying it. Therefore, the investment comes in comfortably, the procurement and all the innovation, and and all the service providers at the end of the day. So it's very interesting to hear that. Maybe we could hear from Sheila. Give us an international best practice example for ESG implementation in a mine. One example.
Yeah, that's a tough call. And here's why. Because all of us sit here and we talk about mining. Miners will tell you that the mining industry is a term that's only used by non-miners. Miners speak of the gold industry, the iron ore industry, the copper industry. It is only when you get that specific that I can give you a specific answer. But be that as it may, I'll indulge you and speak broadly. generally speaking,
Or give us an example in a gold mine.
okay, I'll stick to diamonds. Diamonds are a girl's best friend, so I'll stick.
All right, I agree.
No, but seriously, because I come from a diamond producing country, and that's what I know. So, and diamonds are a good example of why you can't generalize. So, the last speaker spoke about gold and why he needs the liquid cyanide. Now, diamonds, on the other hand, are used in their natural form.
Yes.
And so the metallurgical process, which is the process by which you extract it from the rock, is just water-based. You expose the rock, you crush it, you wash it, you crush it, and because it's the hardest substance known to man, it's the last man standing, literally. And so the environmental aspects deal not so much with the potential to contaminate the soil. It's more the potential to deprive others of nature's most valuable resource. And in your region, that is water. And as fate would have it, in our region, that's the same. So one of the best examples I know of the social stroke environment is how a company I was associated with, desperate to find water to process diamonds, understood that not only was the company desperate, the farmers in the vicinity of the mine were also desperate. And so in an environment in which for every 100 boreholes you sunk, you struck water just once, and that was possibly 100 meters low. The farmers couldn't afford it. So this company made it its task to survey and identify aquifers within 200 kilometers radius of where it was operating and shared it with the communities and said, we will use this, you can use this. But not only that, to ensure that the underground aquifer was not pumped such that it would not recharge, they took it upon themselves to monitor the consumption and the yield of all the boreholes, those used by the farmers and themselves because they had the wherewithal to do it. The result of which is that they were able to sustainably use the underground aquifers, but also to share with the communities in such a way that what nature had given them and the farmers, being underground water aquifers, was sustainable. That, to me, I think, is one of the most profound examples of how a company can use its technological access, financial resources to benefit everybody, but really not because we were charitable, but because we understood that, to Wendy's point, to the extent that we wanted a social license, we needed to demonstrate to the communities that our presence in their midst would benefit them. That is the example that comes to mind.
Beautiful. So this example is maybe on the S level more. So they incorporate the community and the social needs, whether it was in agriculture, which is a totally different sector, right? But they incorporated them with them in the mining because of the lack of water. So that's beautiful. Thank you very much for that example.
I have another example that's you might use in your next question about gold.
Yeah.
Our latest mine gold in Saudi Arabia called Mansoura Masarra. It's really an example of ESG. It's 300 miles away from the nearest city, Taif, in the west of Saudi Arabia. And to preserve water, because as all of you know, mines require a lot of water, they use treated water all the way from Taif, 300 miles, pipelines not to use the water and preserve the water in the area.
Wastewater treatment.
The wastewater treatment was the choice that they went, even though it was expensive, but to preserve the water in the area that we are in. Secondly, using renewable energy to power the facility instead of using normal gas or oil powered energy. That's another effort to carbon emission decrease and use the renewable energy on the area. Third, all the material, the wasted material from the facility, from the building was sent to a recycled material. So zero material wasted on the mine. That's a real example of ESG altogether. I'm very proud of our partner and national champion Ma'aden for doing this, and their partners on creating this great example of ESG and gold. So next time, a moderator will ask you about the gold mine example. I think Mansour
We need to
Masara
take
is-
them to visit that. Thank you, Engineer Suleiman. It's such an inspiring story and an actual, implementation of circular economy when you have zero waste and reuse of everything. This is the exact what we're talking about in this whole forum is the pure absolute implementation of ESG and sustainability, and as you rightly said, not just paper and so thank you very much for that beautiful example. Well, I think we're starting to run out of time, so I'd like to give the opportunity to each of our panelists to give us a takeaway on how to embrace the ESG and sustainability in the mining sector. But please, let's try to keep it as short as possible so we don't run out of time. We'll start with you.
Sorry?
A takeaway.
Okay. I mean, I guess...
A short takeaway.
Sure. The biggest takeaway is that sustainability is the new normal.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. That was super short. But to the point and exactly. It's the new norm. Engineer Suleiman.
I believe even it was restated many times this morning in the sessions, the future of sustainability actually depends on mining.
Yes.
So we need to make sure that we are very much applying the ESG in the right manner to maintain that sustainability for a better future for our lives.
Absolutely. Thank you. Wendy.
Sustainability is the new normal, and it's complex and it requires working together. The complex challenges that we face aren't going to be solved by any one company or any one government. They're going to be solved, or any one community. They're going to be solved by working together in completely new ways and building much deeper connections. So that would be my takeaway. Working together.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Thanks,
Ross.
Yeah, my takeaway is a little bit different. My takeaway is education. I think
Nice.
people need to understand that what we do in building mines is good. We are producing products that we need for everything we do in life.
Very
And
true.
mining companies generally do really good things. They provide medical care. They provide schools. So I think it's a very misunderstood industry. And so my takeaway is I'd love to see more of this and help educate people about what we do and why what we do is good.
Spreading the awareness.
That's right.
Spreading the awareness.
That's right.
Beautiful. Thank you. Jeff.
I'll echo the comments about the multi-stakeholder and the partnership, but I would, again stress that mining, like any other sector, has to be managed with more of an industrial policy, lens. We need to align all the interests of society, employees, suppliers, civil society, government, all together to make a new vision of mining and not just leave everything to the individual actions of companies or the individual actions of government. It has to be a holistic model.
Not to
Here.
work in silos and to be aligned. Beautiful. Thank you.
And,
Michael.
To approach the problem from first principles, challenge the status quo. ESG is possible no matter what the industry, no matter what the
Absolutely.
challenge to it, and really, looking at it from a new lens and looking at it with smart people, around the table, such as these here, really makes it something that can be accomplished, which I think is where it is.
Amazing. Thank you very much, everybody. I think that we could honestly spend a whole day in these discussions and not finish. I still have 1,000,001 questions to everybody, but unfortunately our time is out. And but I would like to thank you all for shedding the light on the different aspects and angles of the ESGs and sustainability. And for this impactful discussion, you all amplified on the urgency and the actual implementation, and we put under that 100 lines, right? Actual implementation of the ESGs. And we've heard the importance of sharing best practices and the transparency and for the global benefit of sustainability. It's local, it's global, it's the world, basically. You know, it affects your neighbor, it affects your children, it affects the generations to come, and it affects globally. So, as you rightly said, it should be the new norm. It is the new norm, and the implementation of it is the new norm. So, thank you all for being here. Thank you for giving us your time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us and giving us your time also. In the land of opportunity, I'm using that word. I loved it. Faddal.
If I may, there's
Please.
small notes.
Please do.
After the session, we will be showing a small movie about Mansour Masarra.
Amazing.
It's so for the audience who would like to join us in seeing it after the session.
On the screen?
Yes.
Amazing. Please, this is an inspiring story, honestly. Worthwhile, not only seeing it, but videoing it and showing it to all and every service provider, your own respective countries, because this is a beautiful example of implementing circular economy, which is, zero net in the kingdom. And once again, thank you very much, everybody. And can we have the video? Is the video up? Huh? Of what? It's going to be in the market. Where? Can you specify so we tell her? On the screen, on the main screen in the marketplace. All right. All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.